Wonderful to be back in spirit at the Hewlett-Woodmere Library. I miss it, as I'm sure a lot of you do. It's a beautiful library, but hopefully we will be back there soon. So what we're doing today are Zoom conferences, and Nadine will have you muted. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in using the chat function. And then at the end, Nadine will unmute everybody, and you can add any other comments that you would like to. So today our topic is Dubai and the city of the future. Now, we do have another talk. I'm sure some of you logged on for the talk on Bangkok, and that was during the hurricane. So power failures and a window through my living room window pretty well put a stop to Bangkok. But we will be doing that, a repeat, next week, Tuesday, September 22nd. So I'm sure a lot of you have been to Bangkok and have fond memories, so I will share some of my memories. And then as we move into the next months, we do have a couple more talks. We have on October 6th, we have Mexico City coming up. So always check.
Ron,
yes.
October 6th is Tel Aviv. We switched it.
Oh, we switched it. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Good. And then do we have October 20th?
Berlin.
Is Berlin. Okay.
And Mexico City is November 10.
November 10. Okay, good. Hey, wonderful.
Right.
All these wonderful cities. So, you know, it's really painful for me. The biggest thing about this lockdown is I haven't been able to travel because every Easter Passover, I go to Mexico. I spend July to the end of August in Europe. January, last year was Brazil for a month. And so I'm still holding my, keeping my fingers crossed for January in the near, the coming January, but really who knows? So I think it's like to Dubai today, it's great for me to just sort of look back and remember when I could still travel. So once again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ron Brown. I teach at Toro College, history, political science. I'm a great world traveler and give talks on Zoom and in person at various other libraries. So why don't we get started with Dubai and the cities of the future? Okay, now I don't know how many of you have been to Dubai, but I spent a wonderful vacation there. And most people go to Dubai because, as the name implies, it is the largest shopping mall on the face of the earth, if not in the entire universe, which is where many people say they get the name. Do buy everything in sight because you're never going to get a better price. So most people go there, they shop, they leave, and that's it. But I was so impressed by the city as really a city of the future where we're all headed. So I spent time just wandering around, interviewing people, and had an absolutely wonderful experience. And unlike most people who don't think too much of it, I found it really a window into the future. So here is the outline of fabulous Dubai. It is all glitter. It is Broadway meets Hollywood. A little bit of the history from 6 camels to 600 skyscrapers. Looking into the future, the city was built on oil, but what is going to be the future? The concept of temporary cities, functional cities, not permanent cities. And then finally, the prototype of the city of the future. So, as usual, I'll talk for about 45, 50 minutes, and then we'll throw it open to questions, comments, criticisms, or whatever. Now, I'm sure for those of you who you've all heard the name Dubai, but you don't, some might not know where it is at. Well, the map on the left, it shows Iran and Saudi Arabia, which I'm sure you all know, and Iraq, which you all know. There, right in the middle of the picture, you see the Persian Gulf. There you see a red square and it says UAE. This is the United Arab Emirates. And on the picture on the right, you see that little oddly shaped country, United Arab Emirates, and there is Abu Dhabi, which is the capital. And then up north of that, closer to Iran, is Dubai. It's really the center of the world. The airlines, for people are going from Europe to Asia, very often the cheapest way is to fly to Dubai, do some shopping, and then fly on to the rest. In fact, that's how I got to Dubai. I really had no intention of going there, but I was on my way to India, and I found it just as easy and even cheaper to fly from New York to Dubai, spend a couple of days in Dubai, and then continue on to India and returning as well, a couple of days in Dubai and then on. So it is really a fabulous history, fabulous city. This is a map of the United Arab Emirates. As you can see, Abu Dhabi is by far the largest. And then you see Dubai, which is one of the Emirates. Sharjah is where my cheapo hotel was. And you see other Emirates. Abu Dhabi is the largest city in the country with 1.5, no, it's the capital with 1.5 million. Dubai, where I am, was the largest city with 3.4 million. The United Arab Emirates altogether has a population of approximately 10 million. Now, it is an Arabic-speaking country. The official religion is Islam. And as you can see on the right, that is the seal with the 7 stars, one for each of the Emirates. Now, an emir rules each of the Emirates. So it's sort of like a federation, like the United States. These are the states. Certain powers are to the states, and certain powers are to the central government. Now, let me continue. There we go. I was there on December 30th, 2017. That's me. And I went up to the top of the most iconic building of Dubai, and that is the Burj Khalifa Tower. It is the tallest building in the world. It is 150 floors. And as you can see in the drawing on the right, it literally towers over the city. And I went up to the top of the tower. Elevators just soared up into the sky, and you have a phenomenal view of the Persian Gulf over to Iran, south into Saudi Arabia, and all of the Emirates. So that's what really people do. At the base of the tower, you have the largest shopping mall on the face of the earth. And it is really a remarkable place. I mean, you see jumbo jets filled with Chinese people coming over buying everything because there are no taxes and the prices are the lowest in the world. Computers, cars, anything you could possibly want. You'd see a plane load of Russians showing up, a plane load of Brazilians. And so it is really a giant shopping mall. These are some of the iconic buildings. You see Dubai with its weird cluster of skyscrapers. The one on the top in the middle is shaped like the sail on a boat because it is on the Persian Gulf. Right in the middle, you see that little palm tree type island, which is artificial island built in the shape of a palm tree. Beautiful villas surrounding it. I did a bus tour around there. It is a bit like Los Angeles, meaning don't try to walk anywhere. It is a city of subways, of elevated, not subways, but elevated trains. It is a city of surface, high-speed traffic. In fact, I almost got arrested because I was trying to cross a street to see another building to take some pictures, and the policeman says, nobody walks in Dubai. So it is a totally artificial city built on the Persian Gulf, all glass and steel and air conditioning. Now, my trip, as I said earlier, was going from New York to Dubai. And then Dubai, I went over to India. I went to Mumbai. It's not a very good map, but you can see Mumbai. And then I went south down to Goa. And then Pune, I visited. So my trip really was to India. But I stopped off in United Arab Emirates, not really expecting too much, but I was literally blown away by the city. As I said, it is Dubai, everything in sight. I mean, they have advertising. You get lost with these shopping malls. Sort of you walk in a door and then you just walk for 3 hours trying to find an exit. And I'm definitely not a shopper. I didn't buy anything, but you would see women from Saudi Arabia up there shopping completely in black. You would see Europeans going around in halter tops and mini skirts, and you'd see groups of Africans shopping, and it is an absolute non-stop shopping city. Well, it wasn't always that way. In the beginning, Dubai was a sleepy little trading post on the Persian Gulf. It was, had nothing of value other than a little trading post. It was all desert surrounding it. And there was absolutely nothing there except the fort, which you can see on the right, which was to protect the little sheikdoms and kingdoms, which nobody had ever heard of or they didn't know anything about. Well, beginning in 1966, Dubai suddenly entered the landscape because of the discovery of oil. And suddenly this little kingdom, which had nothing but a couple palm trees and some camels, burst into the modern age. And I love that picture at the bottom where you see a British Airlines airliner landing on sand and the passengers being transported by camels to the airport for customs. So really, the modern age burst into Dubai with a vengeance, and oil was what it was all about. First the British and then the Americans went in, tried to influence the government and exploit the country for the oil. So it burst into the modern age in 1966. Well, oil production, if you look at the map, you see Egypt, you see Saudi Arabia producing barrels of oil. Iran, the United Arab Emirates was one of the largest producers, along with Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. The United Arab Emirates was number 3. So it just happened to be on top of tons and tons, or I should say barrels and barrels of oil. So it was a major oil producer. Suddenly overnight, the British, the Americans, the Japanese were building oil refineries, bringing in giant super tankers to exploit the oil reserves. Money was flowing in. Population was tiny, but the money was everywhere. Now, what was a country like United Arab Emirates going to do with all this money? Now, like Norway, which is a sparsely populated country with a very small population, but enormous reserves of oil and gas. What these countries like United Arab Emirates and Norway did, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia did the same thing, Qatar, oil-rich countries, they created what they call sovereign wealth fund. This means they took this money, they put it in the bank, and they started investing it. Norway and United Arab Emirates have the two largest sovereign wealth funds. China, think of all this stuff you buy that's produced in China. They produce it for very little in China, sell it at a high price in the United States and Europe and the rest of the world. What is China doing with all of this money? It has too much money to invest in itself. So it goes around the world buying hotels, buying railroads, buying ports, buying everything they can. So interestingly, Norway, United Arab Emirates, and China are three of the largest investors in the United States. I mean, you'd never imagine if you'd look at who owns some of these biggest American companies, automobile companies, department stores, factories, are owned by countries which have too much money and not enough people to spend the money. So this is a term which you meet very often in relationship to the United Arab Emirates or China or Norway, and these are the sovereign wealth funds. These are rich countries with too much money, and they have to invest it somewhere. Now, the United Arab Emirates, right in the middle of the map, you see that X? That's where it's located. So you can see why when I was flying from New York, across the Atlantic to Dubai, stop off point, and then to India. Well, all of my friends I met in Dubai who are from Australia, you can imagine, fly to Dubai, have a wonderful weekend, and then fly on to the United States or Canada or Britain. People in Africa who are flying to China would fly to Dubai and then on to China. People from Russia would fly down to Dubai, have a wonderful Persian Gulf vacation, do all of their shopping, and then go on to Brazil or wherever they are going. So it's right in the middle of the world, which is really a unique position to be in, at the crossroads of the world. Well, the oil boom in United Arab Emirates is at its peak as we speak. If you look at this graph, you see the United Arab Emirates oil and gas production. And you see at the top, 2020 is the high point. From here, the gas and the oil is going to decline. In fact, it is projected to end in 10 years. So what does a little tiny country with a bare 10 million people do if they see the oil running out? How do you create an economy, basically in the center of the world, but really in the middle of nowhere? How does a country plan for the future? Now, this is an issue that almost everybody is dealing with. When you see Donald Trump wearing his Make America Great Again baseball hat, he is very seriously concerned about the future of the United States. The population is stable but declining. It's getting older. China is rising. Brazil is rising. India is rising. Europe is getting united. What is going to be the future of the United States? And Dubai has seriously addressed that question. And in fact, you can say Dubai really has posed some very serious ideas about the future of the modern city? Well, as soon as Dubai realized that its economy was grinding to a halt, that as we speak, the oil production is declining, they had to decide, what are we going to do with all of our money that we have now, small population, and a very precarious future? Well, the very first thing they did was they started building the famous Emirate Airlines, which is what I took when I went from New York to Dubai and then Dubai to Goa. I flew the Emirates. Now, if you look at the map on the right, you see their main claim to fame is they are in the end of the world. You're flying from Japan to Europe, stop off in Dubai. Australia to Europe, stop off in Dubai. The United States to China, stop off in Dubai. Or you're going from Africa to Japan, a stop off in Dubai. So they took all this sovereign wealth money, they bought scores of airplanes, and they started developing out of the blue, out of nothing, what is today one of the largest and most lucrative airlines in the world. Look at the airplane on the left. I believe that is the European Airlines. It has 2 entire floors. This is the mega jumbo jet, not just a little room upstairs, but an entire second floor, up to 500 people crammed into it. I loved it. When I flew from New York to Dubai, 2 floors, you could roam around. You felt like you were in an apartment building. Food was absolutely magnificent. The price was right. So what does a little country like Emirates do when it sees that its future is precarious? It says, we have to do something. And so they developed one of the most modern, one of the most successful, and one of the most lucrative airlines in the world, which is why American Airlines, Delta, European, Lufthansa, Air France, even Japanese and Chinese airlines have great difficulty competing with Emirates. So when a country is facing a questionable future, what do? They have to find a entirely new business to dominate. And luckily, the United Arab Emirates had its sovereign wealth fund, and it was able to build airlines. Another area where Dubai and the United Arab Emirates has really invested a lot of money in is being a university center at the center of the world. When I was there, I visited the New York University Abu Dhabi campus. Many people say that the foreign campuses of NYU have more students than the American campus. Harriet University is there. Australian universities are there. The British University in Dubai. Canadian University of Dubai. You have the American University of Dubai. The Sorbonne has a major French language university located there. American University in Washington has a huge campus. And so here again, Dubai has said, our future is endangered. What businesses are we going to get into to make ourselves a major name? And when I visited NYU, I mean, half of the students weren't even from Abu Dhabi. There were Chinese students there, Russians, Indians, Africans, Europeans, getting an NYU university certificate, diploma, degree, recognized by the United States, by the Middle States, and by everybody else, but valid worldwide. So this is part of the globalization of education. Now, this has become extremely important today because with Donald Trump's Muslim ban and refusing to admit Chinese students into the country, NYU in New York is in a financial crisis because so many of the foreign students are simply not allowed to come to New York to study anymore. So where do they go? To Dubai. So New York University pretty soon is going to have more involvement in Dubai and in foreign countries than it is in New York. The Sorbonne in Paris has a huge sprawling campus, and Dubai has become a major center for high quality education in the French language. I visited their campus. Half the students were from Asia or from Africa, French speaking. So here again, you know, what the title of the series is Dubai, City of the Future. Dubai is definitely charting a role. To survive in the future, you can't just sit back and do nothing. You have to say, what is my role? What are my strong points? What is my location? Constantly reinventing your city. Another area where Dubai, of all countries, is a leader is in space research. I just read that they're sending a Mars probe. Here again, Dubai has the money. It is literally going around the world hiring top-notch scientists from Japan, from China, from New York, from every country in the world, bringing them to Dubai, giving them top-notch research facilities, paying them a salary that American scientists could never even imagine receiving, investing in the latest in research laboratories, and turning little tiny Dubai that nobody ever heard of except for shopping mall into one of the world leaders in space research. And it was amazing when I was there, just meeting people. Now, it is a Muslim country, so you can't buy beer on the street, although I would go to the Dubai Chinatown and I could get my bottle of favorite wine, but it was in a brown paper package and I could drink it in the hotel. Or you could go to a hotel bar where you were allowed to buy alcohol. And one evening I met a whole bunch of scientists, American scientists, who were working on Dubai space research. And they said their life was 1,000 times better than it would be in the United States. They all had drivers, they had maids, they had beautiful homes, and their lifestyle was extraordinary. Now, this is because Dubai has its phenomenal investment fund, and it can decide this is a business of the future. They invest a fortune in it, and it will keep the city alive, important, and prosperous. Another area where Dubai has pumped trillions of dollars into it is in medical research. Once again, with all the money that the kingdom has, it goes to the best universities, hospitals of the world, taking and hiring thousands of scientists, researchers, medical doctors, and bringing them to the to Dubai and the other Emirates, turning Dubai into one of the most advanced and ultra-modern centers of education in the field of medicine. And it was fascinating when I would visit the various universities, Space Research Center, and the Medical Research Center. I was astounded that you rarely met anybody who was from the United Arab Emirates. They were all hired to come there to staff these monumental buildings and research centers, which was very interesting because a lot of people say, oh, I have a contract for 5 years and then I plan to go somewhere else. This is once again plugging into this increasingly globalized world. Now, I'm a perfect example of Thomas Friedman's flat world, where the world is flat. It is global. My BA was from Gannon University in Erie, Pennsylvania. My first MA was from the Hebrew University. My second MA was from Harvard University. My doctorate was from the University of Geneva. I taught for a year in Moscow, a year in Budapest, a semester in Prague. I have traveled all around the world. I am a global person. I could see myself perfectly at home in Dubai, a nominal salary at some university. And these were the kinds of people who create Dubai, who keep it going, who keep it booming, prosperous, ever-changing, oriented toward the future. Which is why I found it so interesting, because I just didn't hang out at the 150 floor tower or the shopping mall. I mean, I wanted to see what made this city of the future tick. Also, Dubai has become a major center of Islamic education. This is the Zayed University on the left, ultra modern. As you can see, it's built in the middle of the desert, completely surrounded by ultra modern buildings. Muslims from Indonesia to San Francisco, from the middle of Russia to South Africa, see the Zayed University in Dubai as a top-notch, future-cutting Islamic university. Once again, bringing scholars from the great universities around the world to establish new Islamic universities. And when you look at the building on the left, this is not Islam of the Middle Ages. This is transforming Islam into a 21st, if not third millennium religious movement. Now, of course, Abu Dhabi and United Arab Emirates are Muslim countries. Even if a huge part of the population is not Muslim, still they mark the city and the Emirates by magnificent gleaming white mosques. And that is really a delight, because some of the best architects around the world are being hired to come to Dubai to set up architectural studios, designing buildings which are traditionally Muslim, but yet ultra modern. Now, what really impressed me also about Dubai is it's what I call a temporary city. It is a city of the future in the sense that it is a constantly changing population. Like I mentioned earlier, I could go there and get a job tomorrow, get a contract for 5 years, earn twice as much as I do in New York, and live 5 times as well as I live in New York. But then again, a lot of people will then want to return home. A lot of people go to Dubai, they get a job, they earn a lot of money. Well, they send the money back to their village in the Philippines, or to their town in Africa, or to their family in Berlin or Moscow or China. So they view Dubai and the Emirates as a temporary city. And at the university, as soon as I would meet somebody at university, I would say, when did you arrive? And how long are you staying? Nobody viewed Dubai as a permanent residence. It was a constant changing population. In fact, even the whole literature, when you get there, the Expatriate's Guide to Living and Working in Dubai. How to Move to Dubai, a guide for wannabe expatriates. Education Zone, Abu Dhabi, teachers from principals down to kindergarten. Send your resume with a photo and Skype ID by such and such a date to the following address. They will pay your transportation there. They will give you an apartment with a maid, very often a car with a driver, and you will have a contract for 10 years. Summer is off. You can travel. They'll pay you 2 paid vacations back to your home country per year. So it is a temporary city. And they advertise all over the place. Hospital jobs in Abu Dhabi, recruitment, airport jobs, recruiting agency, Abu Dhabi Indian school jobs. So you go there, you have the American grade school, you have the American high school, you have American trade schools, every country, every language. I visited the German school and education system for so many German engineers and scientists have gotten jobs there for 3 or 4 years. So it is a temporary city, not a permanent city. We tend to think of New York, my God, it's been here since 1624 when the Dutch founded it. It's gone through radical transformations, but it's going to be here forever. Where we don't think of a city as being a temporary thing. And that's really the future of most cities. I mean, I remember I had my foot operated on in New York a couple of years ago. I mean, the doctor who was doing the surgery was from Saudi Arabia. All the nurses were from the Philippines. All the girls in the office were from South America. The only person who was a native-born American was my anesthesiologist. You know, big, tall, blonde hair guy, American, 100%, no accent. And I was suspicious because I said, are you sure you are licensed to be doing this? Because if it wasn't someone from a foreign country, I was suspicious. But this is Thomas Friedman's realization of his flat world. People are temporary workers. They flow around the world going where the jobs are, whether it is all the people at Toro College and working in the computer lab who are from Russia, whether it is the cleaning crew from Jamaica, whether it's the secretaries from South America. Teachers are from all over the world. This is the city of the future. It is temporary. Now, when I was in Dubai, since there is a huge floating population, people going there for conferences for a week or 2, or a 6-month contract for working, a lot of them decide to save money by not living in a nice apartment, which they could if they're staying for a couple of years, but they stay in hostels. And this is the hostel where I stayed at in Dubai. It was like about $15 a night, but you can see I had a double room, which is how I always travel. I love to stay in hostels in South America, even in Europe. I'll stay in a hostel because immediately you meet people. More than once I was at this hostel and I would meet 5 or 6 guys who would walk in because the rooms would be segregated, men or women. And someone would walk in, you'd introduce yourself, you'd start talking. And I met people from India who were into scientific research, a group of mathematics professors who were there applying for jobs. I met a whole bunch of French guys who were French chefs who were being hired to staff all of these hotels and restaurants catering to foreigners. I met a wine expert that was working there. His job was to supply hotels and restaurants with the latest and the best in French wines. Now, Dubai, even though it is a predominantly Muslim country, is a temporary city. They couldn't function if they were shoving Islam down everybody's throat. So I went to various Catholic churches, since all the girls working as the cleaning staff in the hostel where I was staying, they were all from South America, Central America. And so a couple of them I went to church with on Sunday. And the church on the right was a big Catholic church, but these were Catholics from Egypt. These were Egyptian Christians, Coptic Christians who had gone and who were Arabic speaking, getting very, very good jobs. Church on the left was a group of Mexicans who were there working in construction. So I went to church with them on Sunday. The above picture was a group of Christians from India who were there, who had their own church and had basic religious freedom. It was a Muslim country, but a very tolerant country. Maybe not because they wanted to be, but that was the only way they were going to survive. You can't advertise in China or Japan for engineers and then deny them religious freedom. In fact, when I was there was a big celebration because they revealed plans for a Church-Mosque-Synagogue Proposal, where Dubai would have 3 houses of worship around a big central area, celebrating the religious diversity of the country, and not just celebrating it, but making it the official policy of the country. It is a country and a city welcome for everybody. Now, here again, this is unique in an age when Donald Trump is banning Muslims. Iran is the Islamic Republic. Saudi Arabia is an Islamic country with no churches. Israel is a viciously Jewish country with, and its flag is a religious symbol. Its religious symbols on its coins are all Jewish symbols. You're never going to find a cross on a Israeli coin. Whereas in Dubai, they say we welcome all 3 religions. I asked them, are you going to build a Buddhist temple or a Hindu temple? And they said that is part of the proposal, to have total religious diversity. Now, once again, not so much because they want to, and Muslims are particularly open and tolerant, but that's the only way that such temporary cities, such artificial cities can survive, by attracting people from all over. And don't forget, it was just the United Arab Emirates just a week ago that started the negotiations with Israel to eventually exchange ambassadors, mutual recognition of the country's flights between Tel Aviv and Dubai. So it is a unique country. Now, in Dubai, they have houses of worship of every religion. You see the Sikh temple, which is Sikhs from northern India. Below that is a Hindu temple, a Buddhist temple in Dubai. So remarkable in its celebration of religious diversity. Which is why I view Dubai, and I was so impressed, because it was really the city of the future. A city built just recently, nowhere, in the middle of the desert, and a city which is open and welcoming to everybody. Also, it is a city of a transient population where people come, spend 10, 15 years, and then they leave and go somewhere else. And I stayed in a hotel in Dubai for a couple of days, and the girl at the front desk was from the Philippines. She was fluent in Arabic, in French, in English, and Tagalog from the Philippines. And I said, how long are you going to be here? The first question you ask somebody in Dubai. She said, oh, I signed a contract with the hotel for 3 years. I said, where were you before? She said, I was working in Japan. Where are you going to go next? Oh, I've always wanted to live and work in Rio de Janeiro. And then after that, I said, I really want to spend some time in San Francisco. This is the population of the future, the global population, the floating population. Now, there are all kinds of new cities built in the model of Dubai. Artificial cities built nowhere, floating population, global, international, entrepreneurial, constantly changing and future looking. The gentleman here, Akontem, is a Senegalese American rapper and entertainer. And he decided to build another artificial city in the middle of Senegal. Now you can see one of his names is Akron. And so he's calling it Akron City, designed it as a city of the future, ultra modern architecture. There's nothing Greek and Roman here. It is a city, could be on a spaceship. And constant population, jobs such as education, medical research, airlines, scientific research. This is a city of the future. And this is another one very much modeled on Dubai. Now, a lot of these cities of the future are going to be so well designed that, like Dubai on the left and on, they are totally isolated from a hostile environment. Now, when I was in Dubai, it was January, so it was winter. So it was a cool, pleasant 95 degrees every day. I mean, luckily, I didn't have to deal with heat. But I kept saying I wouldn't want to be there when it gets up into 120 in the summer, which is why these new future-looking artificial cities protect you from the environment. Where you go into the shopping centers of Dubai, everything is enclosed. It is under these giant domes, entire theme parks isolated from the exterior, which is why when I insisted on walking across the street and looking at the buildings and the landscape, I was almost arrested because the policeman said nobody in Dubai goes outside. You go from tunnel to tunnel, from shopping center to hotel to restaurant. Everything is isolated from the exterior. Now, this is going to become more and more important in the future as global warming ravages the country. You can imagine today in California, where forest fires, droughts are ravaging the country, entire towns are being burned. And yesterday I heard it was 110 degrees in a place in near Los Angeles. Forest fires were raging, and they said even the firemen couldn't work outside because they were passing out from dehydration and heat. So the future city is like Dubai, is going to be outside, or inside. It's going to be under these self-enclosed domes, no pollution. The oxygen is rationed to the correct amount. No types of anything to interfere with your health, and a climate resistant. Now, this is going to be the city of the future. Now, recently I watched the phenomenal movie Elysium, which was 2013 sci-fi, of course, with Matt Damon, Jodie Foster, and others. And it really reminded me of Dubai, in the sense that it was a artificial city built on a spaceship circling the Earth. Now, the plot here is global warming had so ravaged the Earth, and raw materials and food were in such short supply by droughts and her terrific storms that a part of the population was removed to a spaceship called Elysium feel. Elysium was the Greek heavenly abode reserved for great men and women. And so the bulk of the human population was let to suffer on a declining planet, and an elite was taken into one of these artificial cities. So when I watched Elysium and I saw this world in outer space, enclosed in this nice little dome, rotating dome and everything, I almost felt like I was back in Dubai, where everything was isolated from the exterior. The population was carefully chosen. They had the right types of education, the right types of raw materials to preserve a totally artificial environment in outer space. Now, the theme of the destruction of the earth is becoming more and more realistic the more we talk. And so places like Dubai, a totally artificial world, protected from the exterior, rotating population, a select population, I think is going to be the city of the future, whether it is here on Earth or on another planet or rotating in space. So many modern films depict the end of the earth by atomic war, global warming, some other horrendous cataclysm, maybe even a pandemic. Could you imagine in Dubai there would be no disease because the air would be so purified. Any disease, people would be isolated immediately, and they would be protected. Now, when we look at a map of the future, these are the expansion of what they call the dry land, basically desert. We see most of Africa is being desertified. That is why we see all of these immigrants, these refugees, fleeing the Middle East, fleeing North Africa, trying to get into Europe. We see all of the Central Americans and South Americans trying to flee into the United States, because as the global climate changes, you can see the map, you see half of the United States is fated to become parched desert. So the only way you could continue to live in a place like Los Angeles or even San Francisco would be under some type of protective artificial environment. Australia is hardly there anymore. Iran, most of India is dying of lack of water, extreme temperatures where the plants are dying. And this is going to be our future. With the ozone layer, radiation is another reason why more and more people are going to have to live in protected environments. And in fact, even our agriculture is going to have to be in artificial areas to protect it from radiation, from drought, from increasing storms. I mean, just this year, the number of hurricanes, there's one approaching New Orleans as we speak, if it hasn't already hit. And in fact, I read this morning in the New York Times that so many hurricanes have been generated in the Atlantic this year that for the first time, they're going to get to the letter Z and have to start all over again. And they were saying they were going to start using the Greek alphabet because they had run out of Latin letters. I think it's Sally. And technically, the hurricane season has barely begun, and we are to the end. Wars. We see wars caused by starvation and desertification. The whole central band of Africa sending millions of refugees to find refuge in Europe. So the idea of artificial cities, whether rotating in space, on other planets, or under giant domes in the United States, is becoming more and more of a reality. And so when I was in Dubai, I had the feeling I am living in the future, where if you even want to go outside of your dome, you are considered a lunatic. And in the news today, I mean, whether it's Donald Trump's walls or the climate refugees from the Middle East and Africa, books being written on global migrants. What would happen if 20 million Central and South Americans and Mexicans would show up on the Rio Grande starving to death? Would the government be able to absorb them when half of the United States is approaching the status of a desert? So the solution for future is more and more artificial cities. The one in the right shows a giant circular dome with lakes and forests, artificial climate. This is the city of Elysium, where the elite would live, leaving behind hundreds of millions of earthlings to suffer from radiation disease and starvation. And so we see Gerard O'Neill, one of the great designer of future cities, his vision of a city in space, agriculture, moving to space, where the rain, the climate, the humidity, the insects are all carefully regulated. When I was in Dubai, the one thing I noticed is you never saw a fly, because the whole environment was so regulated that there was not a fly in the place. Space cities, whether they are like the one designed by Gerard O'Neill or other types of cities on planets, this is the city of the future. Now, another theme that is coming up is that if cities are temporary, well, then a city is disposable. When we see this book on the left by Mario Ariz talking about the future of Miami, saying, well, is it worthwhile building dikes and reinforcing buildings to protect a city which is sinking? Global warming is going to ruin Miami, just as the pictures on the right show the future New York City. I mean, is it time to view cities as disposable, where you go, you live somewhere, and then the climate becomes terrible? Well, then you just move somewhere else. We're attached to cities. I mean, my God, I think of New York City and all the books and articles and talks I've given on New York City. I gave one on the Lower East Side, Harlem, changing demographics of the city, but its permanent character as the Empire City, going back to the Dutch and George Washington. This is a character of the city. We view cities as permanent. We want them to be permanent. What would the world be without a Jerusalem? Whoever controls it. We think of cities as permanent. Rome, the eternal city. But is it time to start thinking of disposable cities? A city is a temporary thing. You build a city on the moon, you mine some element or some material, and when you run out of the material, you just pack up and go someplace else. Stephen King is a great believer in artificial cities. His book, Under the Dome, building cities. At the bottom on the right, you see the famous, that funny looking building on the right that's called the Gherkin, you know, the pickle. But that's London, saying that the pollution and the atmosphere and everything is becoming so dangerous that maybe it's time to put an entire city under a dome with regulated rainfall, regulated air quality. And so as more and more people ponder the future of temporary and cities, Well, you get all kinds of drawings, proposals for cities under the domes. So this is our future. Now, I'll tell you my dream before I retire from Toro College at the age of 125 and stop giving Zoom lectures is to be one of the first settlers on the first Mars colony. Even National Geographic is considering what would a Martian city look like. And they all envisage domes because people are not going to live outside. So gradually the oxygen level would be regulated. You'd have trees and plants and cities under a dome. And so this is really Dubai transported to another planet. This is Dubai floating in space, which is why I found Dubai such a fascinating place to visit. As I said, most people just go there, they do their shopping and go up to the top of the tower, and then they head out. But for me, it was really one of those cities that opened up the future. So once again, this is me, Ron Brown. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to send them to Ron Brown Media. That's my Gmail. I always post talks like this, which are upcoming on my Facebook. And so just go to Ronald Joseph Brown on Facebook and click under events. And I'm always preparing new and exciting talks. In fact, just last weekend, I did a walking tour of the Lower East Side. You might recognize that building just across the street from the Eldridge Street Synagogue. And I found a brand new piece of architecture in front of a bank off of Fifth Avenue. So I'm always coming up with new talks and new exciting things. And final reminder that next Tuesday, same time, same place, I'll be giving my talk on Bangkok, which is another exciting city. And that will be September 22nd, next Tuesday. And then on October 6th, we have Tel Aviv, the city of the Jewish future. And then October 20th is going to be on Berlin, where I spent various vacations, one point even a year living there. So you can get all the information you need on that at the Hewlett-Woodmere site, or you can go to my Facebook account and click on events, and you will find all these wonderful, exciting talks, which I'll be giving in the future. So thank you very, very much, and I hope to see you sometime in the future. Now, let me check and see if we have, we have two chats. Okay, I said thank you. Okay, Cindy. So Cindy, if you go to my Facebook, you'll see everything, and also on the Hewlett-Woodmere site. So that's the best way, and then you can log in there to the to the Hewlett-Woodmere, and you'll get the link. So, okay, well, I went a little bit longer than my usual 45, 50 minutes, but so Nadine, do you have any questions for me?
This was amazing. This was amazing lecture. I really loved it.
Well, thank you very much. Now you have to get ready for a future.
Boy, oh boy, do we ever have to get ready.
Well, you know, I find it just exciting because when I look into the future, I mean, like today, I mean, I'm old enough, and probably some of you are, that I remember when the first electric typewriter was invented. Remember, it was called the Selectric. It had that little ball that bounced around all the time. Well, I thought that was the cat's meow. Then they had the photocopy machine, and then they came out with the computer. And I find these are really exciting when it comes to looking into the future and saying, where are we going to be 20 or 30 years from now? So that's what I found so exciting about Dubai. It was like living in the future.
This is why I always follow your lectures. You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the nice words.
You're terrific. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Hi, Ron.
It was a
Cindy.
terrific lecture.
Thank you.
Wanted to ask you, from what my daughter had gone to college in Arizona and had a friend from Dubai going to school there, and I believe she told me that he said they pay for their college in Dubai. Their college gets paid for, and they sent him there to Arizona to college, everything paid for, and they just have to, I think, give